One thing I look at with my clients is to examine what their gender beliefs are. Like, what are some of their core beliefs about gender? Now, I think it's fair to say that everyone listening to this probably was raised that the biological characteristics, the external genitalia, external anatomy, is what made somebody a gender. We were taught that what you were assigned at birth is how a person identified. They were one and the same, and we didn't see them as anything different. And even though transgender and non binary individuals have been around since the start of time, we did not, as our own society, have an awareness and as open of awareness of it as a whole, even though transgender people have existed again since the beginning of time. But if we understand that that's some of our core beliefs, then we can understand why we may feel challenged, why we may sometimes say the wrong thing in regards to gender, if this is our core belief, and we begin to see what needs to be challenged. So I'll give you another great example, because I think that one's a given, but where we go from there is a little bit different. Like when I ask you, how does a person know they're a woman? How does a person know they're a man? How does a person know they're non-binary? Like what makes them a woman, a man, or a non-binary individual? Just think, and you might make 3 columns, one for each, and just jot down what comes to mind for you. And then look at that list and think about where the exceptions are. Think about where that might not be true. Think about whether those things on the list are a gender expression, meaning the way somebody dresses themselves, grooms themselves, their behavior, their mannerisms. What is a biological characteristic? And, you know, and if there's any other category there, take a look at what there is. I want to give you another example of a story of this, of what I mean. So I had a great conversation with a woman who was struggling with a relative, struggling, like loved the relative, but struggling to understand their transition, their relative's transition. And so I asked her, what makes a woman? How do you know that not how do you know, but what makes a woman? What makes you a woman? She's like, well, my breasts do. Breasts make a woman. That's very clear. And so I said to her, I said, what about women that have mastectomies? Does that mean they're no longer women? And you could see she was like, no, definitely not. She knew many women that had undergone mastectomies. She's like, no, they don't become any less women. I said, and there's also the example of people that identify as men, even cisgender men assigned male at birth, can have something called gynecomastia, which is breast tissue in the chest. Does that make them less of a man? Does that make them more of a woman, per what you're saying? No. Okay, so let's take a step back and ask again, what makes a person a woman? And so that's the type of exercise that I'm talking about. Because when we understand, and we do this without judgment, there's no judgment that that's what she thought. It made sense that's what she thought. And so, and we can challenge it. So we want to do this with compassion. We want to do it with understanding, because when we say, yeah, it makes sense that this is what we thought for X, Y, and Z, this is the way we were raised, this is what we heard, this is our understanding, then we can begin to challenge it. We can begin to see what else is true. What else might be true? Why might this not be true? So I leave you with that exercise if you choose. If you want to talk more about it, please feel free to reach out to me. We can have a conversation about it. And as always, continue to engender love.